DeepSeek was released on January 20th, and since then, the entire trajectory of AI has changed. There's a lot to be excited about, but there's also a lot to be worried about. So what's different about DeepSeek that has everyone talking, and what's going to change for 3D artists? First, there are two things that make DeepSeek special. The first is efficiency, through both cost and computing power. The development of ChatGPT has cost OpenAI roughly $5 billion to date, although the real number is likely even higher. While DeepSeek was developed on a little over $5.5 million, if we are to believe them. That is an insane disparity, especially when you look at the benchmarks and realize that DeepSeek and OpenAI are very competitive. But it starts to make sense when you consider how DeepSeek works. DeepSeek is a large language model, just like ChatGPT and Copilot, and it used a few different techniques to become one of the best models in the world at a fraction of the cost. Firstly, it was trained on self-reinforcing methods, meaning you don't need as much human intervention, which increases the productivity and lowers the cost. Secondly, it's using an MOE, or a mixture of experts system, to answer questions. Basically, most AI chatbots right now are like a library, and if you ask a question, it will go through every book in that library and then answer your question, which, as you can imagine, is very expensive in terms of computational power. When you ask DeepSeek that same question, instead of going through all of its information, it will use a mixture of experts system, which is like looking through all the books in a certain section of a library rather than going through every single section, which makes DeepSeek orders of magnitude more efficient. So that's all well and good, that's great. But why is this so impactful? Well, unlike OpenAI, DeepSeek released their entire model as open source. There are no license restrictions. You can download it for free, which is crazy. OpenAI charges $200 per month for unlimited access to their O1 model. But now with DeepSeek, we have unlimited access to their R1 model for free. In the wake of this, OpenAI, Microsoft, and Nvidia stocks have all taken a huge hit. That's why DeepSeek is special in the world of AI. But why is it so important to 3D artists? Because if you're like me, every time a new AI is released, you ask two things. How is this going to change my workflow? And could this possibly replace me? DeepSeek probably won't change your workflow directly yet, but I'm almost certain it's going to completely revolutionize the way AI is implemented into other programs. For example, Blender is working on development of its own AI toolset. Don't be alarmed, they aren't going to use it where it isn't needed. I'm working on a full dedicated video on that if you're curious about it. But they are planning some sort of AI integration. One of the biggest constraints for Blender or other programs looking to leverage AI, even in a small capacity, is licensing. You can't just go steal ChatGPT and put it in your software without forming some sort of agreement with OpenAI, and those usually cost a lot of money. DeepSeek, on the other hand, is open source, meaning Blender and other programs like it have unrestricted access to one of the most powerful AI models in the world. This essentially just breaks down the entire barrier to entry into AI. Rather than being gatekept by a few huge tech giants, AI is now accessible to anyone. While researching this video, I heard the analogy that DeepSeek is like a PC. During the early computer revolution, large companies controlled access to extremely powerful mainframe computers. But when PCs became popular, it essentially took away the monopoly of computing power from these tech giants. Not that a PC is as powerful as a mainframe, but now everyone had access to that technology, which completely obliterates the barrier to entry. It's the same thing today. DeepSeek on my computer is not as powerful as ChatGPT on OpenAI's $5 billion neural network. But the point is that I have access to it. This is extremely obvious on the small scale to consumers like me. We can now use DeepSeek's R1 model for free, which is the competitor to OpenAI's O1 model that costs $200 a month. But the much bigger impact is for companies. One of the main areas that Blender wants to implement AI is to have a large language model that can help people write Python scripts. But training a model like that is extremely expensive. But now they have access to DeepSeek, which means that they don't have to train their own model. Now, I don't know if they'll go in that direction, but the door is now open for Blender, for add-on developers, and for so many other companies looking to implement some form of AI, which means that DeepSeek doesn't have to be directly used in your workflow to have an impact on how you're going to work in the future. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. AI is on track to replace 300 million jobs in the next 5 years. And now with DeepSeek supercharging AI development by bringing it to everyone, what does that mean for 3D artists? Well, we can expect to see more advancements in small-scale AI projects. One of my personal favorites is Blend AI. It's an add-on that you can download for Blender, and it essentially gives you your own personal AI assistant, which is super helpful for beginners because Blender is notoriously hard to learn. But now that Blend AI has access to DeepSeek's model, they can use it as a starting point to integrate into their system. There are lots of other examples of AI being used to create tools for 3D, like Blender GPT or Meshy.ai. These smaller scale projects that can't afford to invest $5 billion into developing their own model can now leverage DeepSeek to create a much more sophisticated system. So yes, advancements in AI will lead to job loss. But that's nothing new. Whenever technology progresses, there are layoffs. Think about the tractor putting many farmers out of business. But that's one thing. If Blender just gets so good at empowering artists that there are layoffs at companies, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's when the AI takes away from the art rather than empowering the artist that it becomes problematic. Think about Google's VO2 that was released on December 16th. That isn't empowering artists. All it is an engine to get results, which admittedly is all that many companies care about. We have to be careful that we don't get lulled into a sense of complacency, that AI will never be good enough to replace artists. If the last decade has shown us anything, it's shown us that isn't true. But we also don't need to live in fear when it's something that we can't control. Just doing our best is all we can do. Ultimately, the implication for 3D artists is that AI will change things. It's gonna make things faster. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be better, but we already have tools like that are supercharging 3D artists that don't have anything to do with AI. Think about add-ons like HardOps and Boxcutter, or sites like KitBash3D, Textures.com, and BlenderKit. I would recommend investing in any and all of those over AI for aspiring artists. BlenderKit specifically is great because they have a free plan that has over 15,000 high-quality 3D models. And if you want to invest in the paid version, I have a link in the description that'll get you 10% off, and that'll get you access to over 42,000 high-quality 3D models and a ton of other stuff. But before you go to BlenderKit, any of the other sites mentioned, or an AI model generator, keep these two things in mind. Don't steal other people's art by just taking a model and rendering it out without adding anything to it. And don't stunt your growth by using assets as a crutch. Only use assets you could make yourself. If you can make it yourself, then you're saving time. But if you're using it as a crutch, then you're robbing yourself of progress. There are some obvious exceptions, but it's a good rule to stick to. Ultimately, DeepSeek is new and revolutionary, and it will absolutely change the way we create in the near future. But that doesn't mean we're all going to be replaced. All we can do as individuals is create our best work and stay informed, so we're ready for any changes that might come our way. So if you're curious about what Blender itself has been working on, you can watch this video right here.